Ryan Roy is a tattooer turned marketing and financial coach that's helped thousands of tattooers level up their tattoo business and gain more financial peace. He offers courses, but he also puts out free educational resources constantly on his podcast, social media, and webinars. We covered a lot of information, including tips for social media, the current state of the tattoo industry, your emotional relationship to money, tattoo scams, and a lot more. I personally learned so much in this episode, and the tidbits of wisdom from Ryan are absolutely priceless. This is going to be a must listen for tattooers, studio owners, or basically anyone else who deals with money. So really everyone. You can find Ryan on Instagram at Ryan Roy Tattoo. That's Ryan ROI Tattoo. And find us on Instagram at Eden.pod and at Eden Body Art Studios.
I want to take a second to talk about Allegory ink. I've been using Allegory black ink for some time now, and it's been the best black ink I've ever used. It's really consistent, really black, and I haven't used anything else since. They also have Ultra Black if you need that extra punch. Use the code EDEN20 for 20% off your order. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, I was excited to get invited and talk. I mean, I love talking to tattooers about business. That's basically what my whole life is about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
That was going to be my next question was, what exactly do you do?
Yeah,
can you
well,
go a little further into that, your description?
Yeah, I am a tattoo artist. I will always be a tattoo artist, but I don't tattoo professionally anymore. I tattooed full-time for 13 years in New York, in Brooklyn, in Lower Manhattan. I own a shop, Lowdown Tattoo in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. But over COVID, we all had to kind of close down and figure out what we were doing. And I had a 4-month-old baby at the time and a closed studio that I had to pay rent on. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I had been thinking for probably 2 years at that point, like, someone should help tattooers with their finances. Like, someone should do it. But I'm too busy. I'm tattooing full time. Like, I'm not going to do it. But someone should definitely do it. And then I had all this time, and it was just like that moment, like something clicked. And I was like, I'm going to become a financial coach. I'm going to get my financial advisor's license, and I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, I don't half-ass anything. Like, if I get into it, I get obsessed with it, and I go way down the rabbit hole. And so that was what I did. While in New York, we were closed for 4 months, and I just studied to get my Series 65 license, and started making content about finances, retirement, started talking about these things that I felt like tattooers needed to know about.
Yeah.
And then I also knew, like, I was saying this to this tattooer I was hanging with yesterday. I was like, I didn't want to be like the tattoo money guy on Instagram, because like you're going to get hate. You're going to get people talking shit and judging you. And I was just like, I don't care, because this is going to help somebody. And, I did. As soon as I started talking about retirement accounts on my tattoo account, it's kind of weird. And someone's like, my retirement account holds 6 rounds. And I'm like, okay, cool. Good for you. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And then there's that whole, like, womb to tomb, we're going to tattoo. First of all, you were not tattooing in the womb. Like, let's be real. And second of all, like, the word retirement is honestly very misleading. People think of it as like, okay, you stop working. But the truth is, most of us we love working. You're not going to stop working, but you don't want to be forced to trade time for money for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And tattooing is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone who's been tattooing for over 10 years, like, you, in your body, you're just like, whoa, this is hard.
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just going to keep talking about this stuff. I'm going to talk about taxes. I'm going to talk about saving. I'm going to talk about investment accounts, how to use the system, which is, I never in a million years thought that that's what I'd be thinking about, talking about, because I, growing up in the New York City punk scene, tattoo scene, it was like, fuck capitalism, fuck money, fuck rich people. And I just, at some point, I realized that, like, I have this really negative relationship with money. but money's always going to be in my life. It will. There's no way around
Yeah,
it.
it's like omnipresent. It's just a reality.
It's
you can't
just
get away
it's just a
from it.
reality. So
Was having a 4-month-old sort of like a part of that realization?
I mean, it definitely changes your perspective on a lot of things, on what your future looks like, the levels of responsibility that you take on, and so yeah, I mean, I'll be on, like, I was probably working on my relationship with money since I was like 26. I'm 38 now, and I really feel and found like a lot of it is emotional work. And even spiritual work. And so I talk about money, but I talk about money in relationship to our emotional state. It's like this pink elephant in the room, right? When you go do your taxes, I'm sure anyone listening to this can relate. You go to do your taxes and you're like tense, like you feel this weight in your chest. And then you look at the numbers, and the numbers either look the way you want them to or they don't. And your CPA isn't like, how do you feel right now? What's going on internally? And when we don't deal with that, we kind of get addicted to our own dysfunctional state. The chemicals in our body, the emotional state that we have around money, it's kept us surviving. And so we will stay within the realm of what is familiar to us because we've survived. Like maybe we avoid paying our taxes, and that has helped me survive the short term. And so let me just keep doing that. But it's not helping us thrive and build a life of abundance where we are not only able to feel safe and secure around money for ourselves, but actually able to help others. So if everyone's just surviving, no one has enough to help each other out. And so I want people to really see that you are capable of creating a life of abundance, whatever that means to you. I'm not talking about super yachts and mansions, right?
Yeah.
That's not necessary. It's a little unnecessary, let's be honest. But, if you avoid the money conversation because it brings up this emotional state in you that you feel is uncomfortable or dangerous, then that will keep repeating over and over in your life again and again.
I love that you speak so much on just like the emotional part of money, because I feel like one of the biggest issues like with people surrounding money is not just like, how do I get rich? But it's going through large flows of ups and downs and how to deal because it's never just this, right?
No.
There's always going to be, you're
And
going
it's
to see
never
that
just
number
this
go
either.
down.
Yeah,
It's going to go up. And so like what is advice you could give to people who are so emotionally affected by when the numbers do go down and up, when in the long term they may be doing okay?
Yeah. So one is like, first of all, money is not emotional. We are emotional. And so I know it seems simple, but like just separating that alone and just recognizing that something I say to myself, a little mantra is like, this is not responsible for my experience, and I am not I'm not responsible for your experience. You are not responsible for my experience. You can do it with people, but you can do it with money too. Money is not responsible for my experience, because there are people with less money than me that feel more freedom, and there are people with more money than me that feel less freedom than I do.
Yeah.
So the money is not causing my experience, and it takes actually a level of courage and ownership to declare that. And so then realizing, okay, I'm responsible for my experience. And then practicing awareness, recognizing like what, and so I'll do this exercise with people. I'll ask people like, if money was a person, and you're in a relationship with that person, you are in a relationship with this person, like how would you describe your relationship? And people tell me all kinds of stuff. They're like, oh, we have a lot of fun, but I don't really pay enough attention to them, maybe as much as I should, or we have fun in the short term, but I'm not really thinking about our long-term relationship. I'm like, oh, so you have a fuck buddy. Like money's your fuck buddy.
Yeah.
So some people have that that relationship. Or some people just have like a casual, you know, not really sure. Or some people have a very toxic relationship with this person where every time the topic comes up, you get stuck and frustrated. You can't even look at it. And I've been in a relationship with someone where like just them coming into the room, I got tensed up. And, you know, how is that relationship going to go?
Yeah.
If that's the relationship you have. And so you kind of need like relationship therapy with you and money.
Yeah.
What would be a good, I mean, is that, if someone was in that position, would you suggest them going to like a therapist or going to you or both?
There's a lot of things. So I actually talk a lot about this on my podcast, on the Artful Dollar podcast. I did an episode. I really try to just tie whatever. So I did an episode on Hermetic philosophy and money, and there's this principle of polarity. This principle of like you know, everything is tied to its opposite. And so if you look at like, okay, you have a busy week. Maybe you made $3,000 that week and that was like a big week for you, right? And you get this high. The pendulum swings up. And you're like, what am I going to do with this money? You know, you're like you're thinking of, and you're like, oh, I'm going to save it. No, I'm going to save it. But there's that thing I want, or I could go on this trip, right? You start to, your emotions are driving your actions. So that's one thing. All of your actions around money are 100% driven by your emotions. They're very rarely driven by logic. We like to think that we're logical, rational creatures, but we're not.
Yeah.
We are flawed human beings, emotional creatures. And so in that pendulum swinging up, you inevitably set in motion the exact circumstances that are going to cause the pendulum to swing in the other direction and cause you to feel broke and struggling and stressed out. And then we do it again and again. And I think I was on that pendulum for a long time. And I get on and off it. I'm not perfect by any means. And I think that's really important to point out.
Yeah.
I fuck up with my money all the time. I have systems in place that make it so I can't fuck it up that bad. And I have practices in place that when I go through, you know, we're having a slow month or whatever my expectations were and I'm feeling that stress, like I practice awareness around it and sort of create some space. So when I can recognize the feelings going on around money, separate, like look at them, observe them. Sometimes I'll ask myself questions like, what color are these feelings? What shape are they? If they had a texture, what texture would they be? Is it heavy? Is it light? Where is it located in my body? And when you start to create like this structure around it, all of a sudden you're not in the emotion, you have an emotion. And then you create this space, this gap where you can kind of observe it. And I've literally had moments where I'm dealing with a pretty stressful financial situation. That's the other thing is the bigger your life gets, the bigger your problems get.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Always.
Yeah, I feel like people have a misconception. It's like, oh, you make more money, like you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about, no, if you make more money, you worry more about money.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And for some people, they literally live in a prison of their money worry, and they have all the money in the world, and they're the most miserable fucking people I've met, and I've dated one of those people one time.
Yeah.
And so it does. It takes practice. It takes awareness. You know, I was saying before we even hopped on the recording that, like, I've been doing a lot of this somatic body work. And I'm really discovering there's a lot of answers to why I keep doing the things that I do, the limiting beliefs that I hold about myself or about the world around me, whether that's in regards to money or business or my life in general. I think you can find all of the answers like inside here. I've done quite a number of ayahuasca ceremonies, probably dozens, over 30 now with a shaman. And I had a ceremony where the mother, she just clearly told me, she's like, everything you're looking for, all the answers. She was going really fast. She was telling me all these things. And I was like, hold on, slow down. Like, I need to write this in my journal or something. She's like, you don't need to write anything in your journal. Everything I'm telling you is right here. You just need to do the work to practice it and learn it in your life. Like not in the ceremony can only show you, but the real work that happens with ayahuasca happens outside of the ceremony. It happens in your life through meditation, through observation, awareness, journaling, repeating new mantras, new programs. Everything you say is a mantra. The word mantra means instrument of the mind. So the words you say, people say, oh, I'm bad with money. Well, that's the instrument of the mind that your thoughts dance to, that song.
Yeah.
And then your life goes that way.
Yeah. Have you read the Four Agreements?
I've read 2 of the 4 agreements.
Okay.
I've read some of the book. I haven't finished it, but I
Gotcha.
do know the book, and I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one that's like, be impeccable with your word, and it's we cast spells with our words. So
You
if you
do.
say,
Absolutely.
I'm bad with money, it's kind of like
You're literally
manifestation.
casting that
Yeah.
spell. And so that's when I say, like, be aware, practice awareness. Be very aware of the words that come out of your mouth. Another big one I hear people say all the time is, I don't want to be rich, or I don't want to be wealthy. And I get where you're coming from with that. But I want to challenge that, because what people end up doing is they create this state of constant survival because they refuse to be anything that could remotely be considered wealthy. So the minute you, and so that includes financial stability.
Yeah.
Like having more, to feel financially stable, you need to have more than enough.
Yeah.
And so when we say, oh, I don't want to be rich, or I don't want to be wealthy, I just want to, be able to pay my bills and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you've been just paying your bills. You're good at that. You
Yeah.
already know how to survive.
Yeah.
I trust that you know how to get by and survive. What I want to teach people is, how do we actually thrive so that we can become financially at peace, financially secure, so that we can then actually help other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we're going to transform the world's relationship with money.
Yeah.
But it starts with you. It starts with the doing the inner work.
Yeah. Well, I love how you relate it back to helping other people, because I feel like, at the end of the day, that's what everything is about. But I feel like people just have this money's a big thing. So I feel like there's, maybe especially in the tattoo industry, there's like this negative stigma like attached to it, or like if you have more money, then that's a bad thing. And I experience this as a lot as a shop owner, because there's the memes and everything, like shop owners are super greedy, and so
right.
and so I and it's something that I talk about with other shop owners. If you're taking money from your artist, that doesn't have to be selfish, because like here, what we do is like we put like the vast majority of that back into them to give them more resources and everything like that. So I like that.
I always tell shop owners, like, at the end of the day, you work for your artists.
I say the same exact thing.
They're paying you, right?
Yeah.
So they hired you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't do a good job as a shop owner creating a space where they can thrive and feel safe and supported, then they will no longer hire you anymore.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
We look at it like you're the boss, but really you're not the boss.
Isn't that such a mind fuck when you're like, oh, I'm gonna start my own business. I'm gonna be my own boss. It's like, okay, you don't work for somebody else, but you do. You work for the people around you. You work for your artists. You work for your family, and you don't have somebody telling you to do this at this time. But if you don't, like you said, they're gonna fire you. That's great. I love that.
So anytime a shop owner, I think a lot of shop owners have had the experience of a bunch of people walking out on them all at once, right? That's a story we've heard many times.
And they like to blame everyone.
And they like to blame everyone. It's like, what does that say about you?
Yeah.
It says something about you as a shop owner. And look, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person either.
No.
You can be a good person and be bad at business.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
You know?
and I say the same exact thing when I talk about, because I feel like as a shop owner, however you have it structured where your artists are paying you, you have to have a balance, because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen people make so much money and they're not doing anything for their artists, and everybody walks out on them. And I always say, if you have a high turnover rate, that's when you need to look at your structure and say, is it actually worth it for these artists to be paying me this amount? I've also seen it go the other way,
100%.
where people, and it's coming from such an amazing place. They really care about their artists. They want to offer them all these things, but they're spending too much time and they're not making any profit, and they're providing their artists with what they want to provide them with. But at the end of the day, it has to be worth it for everyone, you know, and it's
That's why you should have a business partner so you can focus on yourself as well.
That's part of it, but you know, you're burning the candle at both ends when you do that, because you can't keep that up forever.
Right.
You know?
So then you got a position where you're the hardest working person at the shop. You're also taking the largest risk, and that is the main thing that I think why shop owners absolutely deserve to earn a profit from what they're doing is they're taking on the risk of the lease, of the equipment, of all the stuff. If there's some, like, everyone can up and leave. They can go somewhere else, but you can't. You've taken on the responsibility. You've put the upfront investment. You've put the down payment. And it's really the risk that you've assumed, the responsibility that you've assumed, which is why you absolutely deserve to earn a profit. It's not earning money off of other people's backs.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And but I feel like as a shop owner, you should be the hardest working person in the room.
You should, absolutely. And you should be rewarded for it.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah. Exactly.
That's it. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I was going to ask. So you mentioned it really briefly earlier, but you said, like, if we have a bad month or if we have a good week, are you talking about you and your shop, or
right now?
What is the we?
Yeah.
Sense
So
in that?
right now, I have actually very little to do with my shop. I have owned and run a shop for maybe 8 or 9 years total, and it was a very small private studio. And then it was a little bit of a bigger private studio, and then it was a really big private studio with like 4 to 5 booths, and then now it's a street shop. And when we moved to the street shop, we just got this really great opportunity, good rent, good location.
This is in Brooklyn.
This is in Brooklyn, yeah. That was right around the time that the financial coaching and marketing education that I do, like, took over my life. We had so many people joining us, signing up, wanting to, learn to save more money. That was the main thing we focused on, was like, how do we take the burden of money out of your life so that you have more time, energy, and money to be an artist, to enjoy yourself, to create the life you want. And then later we got into like business and marketing education. So that was in October of 2022. So literally 2 years ago, this month, we're in October. And I started to have less to do. I stopped taking tattoo appointments 2 years ago. And over the past 2 years, I've just been like giving more responsibility to the artists at the shop and really giving them an opportunity to thrive and, make sure that the bills get paid. Again, I assume all the risk. Like, if the bills don't get paid, that's on me.
Right.
But I pretty much, at this point, I don't take a profit from my shop. And I'm also not the hardest working motherfucker at the shop.
Sure, yeah. At least towards the shop,
Towards the shop, right. I honestly work harder than I ever did in my tattoo career in the coaching business that I have in the Artful Dollar. And so for when I say a slow month, it now more refers to, I might have a full staff, employees. We have, I think last year we had almost $500,000 in payroll.
Wow.
Just covering, employees that we had to hire. And so it's been a business that grew very quickly in a very short period of time. And that was again, bigger life, bigger problems.
Yeah.
And so that's, having to adapt to the changes in the tattoo industry.
Yeah.
Right. So we were helping people save money because in 2021, 2022, tattooers were making bank. And they had been for years, but then industry changed and we saw, oh, wow, people are really struggling just to make enough. So we had to pivot.
Yeah.
And while we still do financial education, we also run a marketing program, the Artful Marketer. And it's mostly for individual tattooers. And we do have shop owners as well. But I think there's a lot of stuff out there focused on like running ads for shop owners. But running ads is great, but if you don't have organic marketing, you're shining a light on like what?
Yeah.
And so you can burn a lot of money on ads, but not actually get a return on ad spend because your organic marketing isn't good.
Yeah.
And you need both.
Yeah, man, you just said so much stuff that I want to dive into. I'm going to try to get back to all of it and not leave any of it out.
Sure.
But I think let's just first, do you want to just kind of let people know like what all that you offer? Because you mentioned it, you know, you have the Artful Dollar, you have the podcast, you have the marketing coach, but the marketing course. Do you kind of want to break down
Sure.
kind of all the things that you're involved with?
Yeah, so the two primary things that I work and how I help artists is the Artful Dollar program is just really focusing on building automated systems to save. And like I said, like I'm an artist. I got ADHD. I'm get distracted. It's because I put like some structure and some systems in place. It's kind of like bumpers for bowling, right? It's like I might not knock down all the pins, but I'm not going to get a gutter ball.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to save my first $10,000, first $100,000. And so that is what we focus on helping tattooers put in place, as well as look at the narrative that we have around money. What is the story? What are the beliefs, this internal belief systems that are really running the show? And it's funny, I get people all the time that work with us that are like, you know, I thought this was like a finance course, but really it was like a life coaching course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because money impacts every area
It really
of your
does.
life.
Yes.
It really does.
Yes.
And so we focus both on like the systems, the practical, tangible, like what do you do, but then also like how do we think about money in a way that serves us now and into the future.
Yeah.
And then we, you know, about maybe 7 or 8 months ago, started just focusing on marketing education. We used to teach that in all as one package, and then we just basically made it more affordable by separating it. Yeah.
And so, and I'm sorry, so this is a course that people can just go buy.
Yeah.
And it's not, is it like personalized where you like work with the person while they're working through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a degree of personalized coaching support, which I find really, really helpful.
Yeah,
I don't have any DIY stuff. One of the reasons I don't have DIY programs right now, and I might in the future, is if you look at the stats on DIY programs, like 90% of the people that buy those don't actually do them. And so I don't want people to buy my thing and not do it and not get the thing that they came for. And I think a lot of it has to do with like you're not able to address some of those internal perspectives. Even in my marketing course, I talk about our relationship with marketing.
Yeah.
And like the fear of being seen. That's a big one for tattooers, of like, if I actually shine my light in the world loudly and proudly and say like, hey, I fucking love tattoos. I love doing this kind of tattoo. And if you love that too, you should come and work with me. Like there's this fear. And so they don't really shine their light very brightly.
Yeah.
Because of that internal relationship with this thing called marketing. Even the word marketing. People think of it as like this icky.
We don't use it very often in the tattoo industry.
No, we don't.
We
use
say
it.
You know, Instagram a lot, but at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. It's marketing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the level of personal involvement that you have with those courses then?
Some of our programs have one-on-one coaching support, and others just involve like group coaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So now you're just doing the marketing stuff, the marketing
we do
course?
Both.
Okay,
we do both. Yeah, and we've had a lot of people that come to us looking to, you know, book more appointments and increase their income, and then they're like, okay, cool. Now I have a new problem. I'm making $10,000 a month. I need to figure out how to manage that money, and then we'll support them with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I want to talk about the team, because you said you had a bunch of employees. So can you talk about kind of how you grew that team and like how many people you have on it and what they all do?
I mean, first and foremost, like a virtual assistant. And I've had multiple virtual assistants over the years. I kind of taken some of the roles and split them across. So like obviously like a video editor is super important. I have to make the content. I have to think about the content. I have to script it. But I need someone that can edit it for me and do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
So I do some of my own editing, but that role, and I think in the future, I think every tattoo shop will probably need a video editor.
And so this is for Instagram Reels too, or just for the podcast?
Mostly for the podcast.
Okay.
I do most of my like Instagram Reel
Which
editing.
are great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a post on this the other day. Like I've heard a lot of people talking about, I just hired someone to do my marketing for me. I have never heard that sentence followed by, and it worked out really great 3 months later. Never heard that. I've heard people say, yeah, I hired someone to do my marketing, didn't really work out that great. Like that's what I've heard 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. I don't want to get too There's so much good stuff. I don't want to get too off into a tangent, but that's one thing I told tattooers all the time is they see other shops maybe doing video content and they, hear I need to do more reels and they're like, oh, I need to hire a videographer. And then they get a videographer, and they'll get great shots. They'll make good videos, but it's not content that you're going to get an ROI on because it's not going to perform well for Instagram. And I feel like there's multiple different skill sets. There's video and video editing, and then there's marketing, and then there's, the tattooing, which a lot of times those people, they're not going to know anything about. So I feel like if you're gonna outsource that stuff, which you should at the end of the day, you need to know enough about it.
You need to know enough about it.
Tell somebody what to do and know if they're doing a good job.
Exactly. Yes. That's what it takes to be a good business owner and operator. There's a term in business like an operator.
Yeah.
Like, what's an operator? Someone that actually operates as a business owner and has their hand in every part of it, understands every part of it, but then they can then delegate. That's the operator.
Yeah.
And I just think it's actually like really exciting to learn how to create a business, especially from nothing. And once you really understand the fundamentals of finance, business, and marketing, and then you can get into sales, that's actually a whole other thing. Once you understand that, like, you can actually build any business.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's one thing, I don't have any business background or anything like that. I very much figured out how to do everything myself.
Me too,
But when I first started the business, it was like something different every day. It's like you got to figure out finances, real estate when you're looking for a shop, graphic design, social media. And so I still am learning new stuff every day.
Have you ever heard the term ignorance tax?
No.
So when you start a business, you owe a big fat bill of ignorance tax.
Yeah.
Which you pay down over the years of building your business.
That is one of the greatest things I've ever heard. It's
really
so
expensive. It costs you time, energy, and money. And we were talking about, there's ways to invest in yourself, in your own education, to pay someone that has already paid the ignorance tax.
Yes.
And they can teach you how to bypass and not make the same mistakes that they made.
That is so fantastic. Ignorance tax. I'm definitely going to steal that because, man, you pay a shit ton of that as a shop owner, as any business owner. But there's so many things. It's like things that come back to bite you in the ass, and you've probably never thought about them before. Yeah. But once you know that, you know not to make that mistake again,
Right, right. And so there hasn't really been a lot of business education in the tattoo industry. There are in every other industry, like how to grow a plumbing business, how to grow a dentist practice.
Yeah.
There's tons of educations that you don't have to pay down the ignorance tax because someone else has.
Yeah.
But, I see you guys posting a lot of business stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
And, there needs to be more.
Yeah, absolutely.
People sharing from the mistakes that they've made as a business, operating as a tattoo business, so that other people don't have to make the same mistake.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about earlier on the way over here, why that is, why we don't have as many, especially financial resources and stuff, stuff like the business side of things.
It's all secretive.
Yeah, it's all secretive. Also, tattooing is such a weird industry because, tattoos have literally been around forever.
Right.
But it's really in the past, 10 or 15 years that it's really started to blow up.
Yeah.
And I'm sure tattooers made good money before that, but, now you have all these tattooers who, have never had any of this coaching that are really successful in their industry, and they're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
So, and it's how do you manage that?
Right. I was talking to someone the other day about, there's this argument tattooing is not an industry, it's a craft. And it's well, it's a craft and it's an industry.
Yeah.
There wasn't a tattoo industry even 20 years ago. It was mostly just a craft. And yeah, some people ran tattoo businesses. But in the past, like you're saying, 15 years, I started tattooing professionally 15 years ago. Before Instagram, before Ink Master, and so I got to see that little glimpse, just a little peek of it, and it was great. There was something magical and special about it, and it's gone, and it will never come back.
Yeah,
and that's okay. It's not a problem. If you were there for it and you got to experience it, then you've been blessed. And but the only constant in business, and let's be honest, in life, is change. Yeah. And you have to adapt. This is not unique to tattooing. This is, again, in every single industry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man.
And you can fight it all day long. There's people always fighting that change, but
Right. I was
never
making the
gonna
reference like,
go
look at
away.
Blockbuster. They fought it. They
Yeah.
were multi-million. They Netflix offered to sell to Blockbuster for $100 million. And there was a meeting, and they went to the execs, and these very smart business, they'd been running Blockbuster for a long time, which was a huge company, looked at the offer, looked at what they were saying. They're like, look, the industry's changing. These things are, the future is going to be this. And they laughed at them. They
Yeah.
laughed them out of the office. Like, you are out of your mind. $100 million? You crazy? I mean, Netflix is worth multiple billions of dollars today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's just like a story that I think every tattooer should look at. And you could say, oh, that's like that. So many different circumstances. Like, not really.
It's every industry changes in different ways, but it's always inevitable at the end of the day, and it's always something that people resist. There's a great book I read recently. It's called Who Moved My Cheese. Have you heard of it?
No.
So I mean, it's basically it revolves around this little story, and it's a little bit no pun intended. It's a little bit cheesy, but
Okay.
the message is change is inevitable, and the only thing that you can do is jump on it as quick as possible and have a good attitude about it.
Have a good attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand behind like all the tattooers out there who are like, oh, like fuck AI, fuck, pen rotaries and fuck like
Fuck Instagram,
And I get it because like I get what's special about the tattoo industry, and I get that there's so much tradition in it and lots of hardships people had to go through that people these days don't have to go through the same hardships that they might have went to, and I can
Sure, yeah.
understand feeling like resentful or feeling like, man, like I did all of this. I respect the industry, everybody. And it's so people I feel like still need to have some level of respect for the industry, but I think those people also need to look at themselves and think like, what am I really mad about?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
going on in my life, and why can't I?
Do that internal work.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to compare the tattoo industry to other industries because
Same.
it gives you a great perspective. I actually have a degree in jewelry and metalsmithing.
Really?
I went to FIT and studied metalsmithing for 2 years. I was actually going to make machines. I wanted to build coil machines.
That's
I took
so
a
cool.
bunch of coil machine courses, classes, and in jewelry, I can't remember when it was, but like the invention of bottled oxygen, like to be able to encase oxygen in a tank, that's relatively new in the world. Like, I don't know, 100 years ago, maybe less. And before that, when you had a torch and you made jewelry, you needed to heat the propane up by breathing oxygen into the torch.
Yeah.
And you would blow, and you'd have these long, you had to like learn how to breathe to make this. And then all of a sudden, they bottled oxygen. You can just turn a knob, and obviously the hottest flame, and it's perfect every single time. And I always wonder, like, did jewelers like complain about that? Did they like, wow, that's just not the way we did it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they worked so hard for.
They work so
Yeah.
hard, and like jewelers are actually most of the most famous jewelers like throughout history, like the Harry Winston, Cartier, people that make that stuff. They're very similar to tattoo artists. They're kind of like these like burly dudes, guys that are like hunched over a bench, but all
Yeah.
industries change, adapt, technology, for
Yeah.
better or worse, and you can either learn, adapt, and grow, and actually get excited about it, or
complain
you
on the
can get
internet.
stuck and resist what's happening, and
Yeah.
who's benefiting from that? You know?
Right.
Yeah, nobody. And I dabble in all this stuff, but I'm not a financial guy by any means. So, I mean, one thing that I talk about the most, and I'm the most passionate about it probably, is social media. And so in all of
Yeah.
my seminars, I talk about, all this stuff is changing, Instagram's changing, it's different than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the next thing I say is like, so what? Like, yeah, it sucks,
what?
but if you just complain about it, it's not gonna change anything. And
Exactly.
it's a different conversation, but AI is kind of the thing right now. But whatever it is, iPads, rotaries, like no amount of bitching that you do or complaining is gonna change it. Like
Bitching don't pay the bills.
Totally. When the large scale change comes, it's inevitable. It's just
Yeah.
going to happen. So you have two options. You can either get on it and lean into it, be happy about it, or just drag your feet. And that's only going to bring you down and the people down around you.
And I'd
Yeah.
like to point out too, the people that are saying this. How long have you been tattooing?
15 years, yeah.
Been in the industry about 15 years, so this is coming from people who were brought up
Yeah.
in the traditional
No, I
times.
didn't like
I've had to
social
have-
media in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, yeah.
awkward and weird, totally.
Yes, and I had a very traditional. I know I don't look like it. I'm not like a big burly guy, but I had a very traditional and one of the hardest apprenticeships that I know of. And
Yeah.
this is coming from people who like were in it and are evolving and changing. And I think everybody can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and when I see a tattooer, and I've worked with a lot of 20, 30-year veteran tattooers, that they see the wind blowing a different direction, and they want to adapt, but they don't know where to start, and we've worked together. They do the Artful Marketer program, and when they tell me, like, Ryan, this one guy, Chris, he's in San Diego, been tattooing 20 years, I said, how hard was it when you first made that first post, where, like, you were sharing yourself or talking? From 1 to 10, how hard was it? He was like, it was a 20. And I was like, okay, well, what about now? Like, now that you're doing it? He's like, honestly, I enjoy it. And I know when I hear someone say they enjoy it, I'm like, I've done my job. Because
Yeah.
if you
Heck
enjoy
yeah.
it,
Oh, yeah.
then you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to
Heck
get the
yeah.
benefit. And started booking more appointments, and his clients started referencing the content he's making when they come and get an appointment. Then you've started to learn this tool. And
Yeah.
it's like when you start tattooing, is it really fun? Not really. It's kind of fucking
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
You're sweating bullets, but then you learn how to do it, and then it becomes like the most fun thing in the world. I think content can actually be the
Yeah.
same way.
And
Yes.
and I've mentioned this quote on the podcast before, but it's one that I like a lot. And it's like, you should be, if you're not excited to make your posts, then you're probably doing something wrong. And that comes with learning how to do it and feeling
Yeah.
confident in it. So we're at the point now where, like, most of the stuff that we do, and I've seen it since its inception, a lot of times it's an idea that I've come up with, or even if one of them comes up with it, I'll jump in on it. And by the time it's filmed, I'm like, I can't wait for them to finish editing, and I
Yeah.
can't wait for it to come up in the posting schedule, because I'm stoked to post that piece of content. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like drawing. So, like, people are like, well, I don't know what to post, or I don't know what I should say or what I should do. And it's like, people like want to develop a style in tattooing. How do you develop a style in tattooing? Everyone's kind of like, you just draw a lot. You just
Yeah.
do it. Like, when it comes down to it, that's kind of how you do it. And content is the same way. If you're wondering what you should put, you kind of just need to make something, anything. Let it be bad. And I always tell people, if you want to make good content, you have to make bad content.
Yeah.
If you want to make good tattoos, you have to make bad
That's
tattoos.
and I say that.
Just do it.
Yeah, I say the same thing in my seminars. I'm like, it's a skill.
Yes.
Like, you just have to do it. It's probably going to suck at first, but you'll get better over time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you gotta let go of that worry of like. I feel like the people that are that is it's hard for them to post on social media is they're so afraid of being judged by people who don't pay their bills and don't matter in their
Yeah.
life. And if you're worried about the people that are gonna judge you for trying to better yourself or work on your money or business or anything, they're not the people you're trying to have in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I want to get back to this question mostly for myself, because I'm curious. So you said you had virtual assistants, but what other
Right.
employees do you have in the business?
Virtual assistant, and then I reached out.
And I'm sorry, to hire a virtual assistant, is this somebody that you knew, or did you?
There's a lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is actually a great place
Yeah.
for that. And then I have worked with like virtual assistants in the Philippines, which can be a lot more affordable, and some of them are phenomenally talented. They do seem to require a lot of instruction.
Yeah.
Like a lot of like kind of hand holding, which then can become a whole job in and of
Right.
itself. A good one is priceless, but there's always a learning curve, and that's the hardest part about hiring people is you have to invest time in training them, and by the time you've trained them, only then do you realize, are they good or not? And so I was telling you, I'm teaching a seminar at a financial convention on building a coaching business later this month, and one of the things I'm telling people is like, you need to only work with A players. A B player will cost you so much more. They might be cheaper, but they will cost you so much more
Yeah.
in your business, and it
love
won't be
that.
worth the price.
So what all does your virtual assistant do for you?
I mean, handling emails is a big one. Handling communications, making sure things don't fall through the cracks. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Like right now, I don't have one dedicated virtual assistant. I kind of have 3 people that are on my team that do other things. So I have a COO, Chief Officer of Operations. I have an assistant coach who coaches in the program, and then I have a video editor. And they all have specific sort of virtual assistant things that they do in addition to, and so that comes from like learning to delegate. And I realized at a certain point we needed to slim down the team. We had a lot of expenses for a while, and we were growing really fast. And that's one of the most dangerous things about any business growing quickly is you start to think in terms of like, oh, well, I'll always be making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month. So let me keep hiring more. Let me keep burning to, and that's not the case. And I've worked with a lot of tattoo shops that they keep investing into the shop, but they're never actually pulling a profit.
Yeah.
And thinking about like, what is your profit margin and how to, accomplish that. But I've had a number of virtual assistants, and I think if you don't delegate those tasks to other people, like having a dedicated assistant, I think is essential. You can get someone for $10 to $15 if they're in the Philippines. In the US, it's more like $30, $35 for a good virtual assistant, but totally worth it.
Yeah.
Here's your chance to learn from one of the best tattooers and one of my personal favorite tattooers in the world. Ink Master winner for season 15, Bobby Johnson, is going to be having a seminar presented here at Eden in November. His seminar is going to be 2 full days and his most interactive one yet. The first day is going to be him doing a presentation on tattooing, but he's also going to be inspiring you by talking about his mindset, motivation, and telling stories from his career that got him to where he is today. He'll also be doing live design critiques for the class, which personally I think is one of the most helpful things I've ever done with him. This will help show his approach to drawing. Then he'll demonstrate his tattoo techniques to show how he gets those immaculate lines, solid saturation, and smooth color blends. At the end of the first day, you'll all be working together on a design prompt, which you'll go home, do overnight. Day 2, Bobby will critique the designs you just did overnight, and then you'll tattoo the design that Bobby tattooed the day before. He'll of course walk around and help everybody hands-on on how to tattoo it the exact way he tattooed it. This seminar is going to be great, especially for those artists working in a similar style to Bobby, but also for those who don't and just want to learn great fundamentals of design and drawing. You absolutely can't miss this. It'll be here in Dallas at Eden Body Art Studios, November 17th and 18th. Check the link in the video description for more info.
You have 3 employees?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have another employee that also helps with communication. So like I spend a lot of time in Instagram talking to sometimes hundreds of tattooers, and sometimes things fall through the cracks. So I have someone that just like helps make sure that I'm on top of that. If people ask me for resources, whether that's clients or just other followers and stuff, like I want to be sure that I can fulfill and help them get those resources, because I give away a lot of free resources on Instagram. So I kind of have someone that's like a communication support as well. So it's kind of 4 employees right now. I have had other people doing other things, but that seems to be like assistant coach, chief officer operations, video editor, and just like someone helping me make sure I don't miss communications.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, a question. So you do a lot of messaging on Instagram. I've gotten messages from you before. You say, hey, I've got this seminar coming up. So is that you or is that the assistants?
Sometimes it's the assistant. Sometimes it's just automation, like ManyChat automation. So a big part I teach in all my marketing classes, courses, whether that's free or paid, is like creating conversations is what is like planting seeds. It's like you're planting these seeds. You don't know if that conversation is going to turn into business or some other opportunity or what it is, but you want to be creating and nurturing as many conversations as you can. And
if you can, because the downside is that takes time, but if you can automate it, then that's
right,
100%, all the better.
And if you automate it too much, then it's not going to actually do anything.
Sure.
People are going to.
But at least to start,
they know they're talking to a robot.
Right? Yeah.
But to start a conversation, so ManyChat, and I actually been showing tattooers how to, create a flash sheet, right? And then like hint at your followers of like what's on the flash sheet, but don't show them the whole thing. And then say, comment, flash, and I'll send you this flash sheet.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've built up this curiosity, which is great. People love having curiosity in your marketing is so important. And then the automation will automatically DM them the flash sheet, and then you can come in and actually have a conversation with that person.
Yeah.
So using any kind of automation in your business.
And
to help,
it's
great.
not, that's much better than just cold DMing people, because those people are at least somewhat interested in what you have to say. So
But you know
the
what?
odds are higher that.
You can cold DM.
Sure.
100%. You should cold DM.
Yeah.
Now, you can't cold DM people that don't follow you anymore. You used to be able to do that. You can't Instagram, the message like won't show up or something.
Yeah.
They won't see it. But I always tell people, don't cold DM people and be like, hey, do you want to get tattooed? Just introduce yourself. Just say, hey, thanks for giving me a follow. I just want you to know, if you have any questions, I'm an open book. Let me know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, that's
Just
awesome.
Because I want you to treat your social media page like it's your shop. We used to rely on walk-ins. That was the thing, and there just aren't as many walk-ins anymore. And that's just normal, unless you're in a certain location, sure. But treat your social media page like it's someone walking into your shop. And if you just sat there and didn't introduce yourself, it'd be weird. Are they going to get tattooed by you? Probably not.
Yeah, totally.
And so do that on social media.
Yeah, so I had this in my seminars before I saw this, but I always say, there's so many artists they have in their bio, like no DMs, and they're missing out on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And so, but I saw you make a post where you said that DMs are the new walk-ins.
Yeah.
And that has resonated with me so much. I put it in my seminar, and I quote
Good.
you and everything.
Good.
But
Take it.
I think about that all the time. And the other funny thing that I was thinking about the other day, there's so many scam accounts on there, and like I've got her Facebook page going recently, and like 5 people a day will message me like, hey, I got scammed, or this person's reaching out to me. But I feel like we can learn an important lesson from scammers, even though they're shit. Like these people, however sketchy it might look, they're reaching out to people and they're getting them to pay them money for appointments. So
That's a
if
really
they
good
can
point.
do that, then the
And
actual
they're full of
artist can
shit.
probably do it too.
And you're not full of shit. You're a
Exactly.
talented fucking tattooer that actually deserves this fucking money.
Right.
And especially
right.
like, not everybody's at DEANNA'S level, but like people will message or email and be like, and they'll show screenshots of their
Right.
conversation. They're like, oh, I'm so excited. I followed you forever. And they're probably not getting a quote or anything. So they don't, they don't have the opportunity to like turn it down, but like they're ready to send money.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that people are getting scammed. Don't do that.
Right. But no, I like I see the point you're trying to make, and I fully support it.
Yeah.
And I like learn something from them. They're doing it and they're full of shit. They don't have talent. They don't have nothing. They have the balls to create a conversation. And a lot of tattooers are very, very quiet on there. And I get like some people, there's like social anxiety or whatever, but it's social media.
Yeah.
You can't just post media and expect to be successful. You can't
Right.
take the social out of social media.
And
Yeah.
choose your hard. Do you want the hardness of posting on social media or the hardness of falling behind?
Yeah.
Right. Either way. Yeah. Choose your heart. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Well, I love that. There are so many good nuggets in here. I love that you can't take the social out of social media.
Yeah.
Love that.
And especially with tattooers, I feel like it's a new thing that people are like showing their faces, and you have to be verified. You got to show your face and everything like that. But it used to be like if you went to a tattoo page or like you went to DEANNA'S page, like it'd be like a piece of their art as their profile picture.
Yep.
And I've been tattooed by artists before where it's like I didn't know what they looked like before I showed up to the appointment.
You don't even know people's names half the time.
Right. And there's a place for that. I get it. But I always say at the end of the day, like people are on social, right, media to make connections. And especially with so many good tattooers out there, like people will 1,000,000% follow a person before they just follow an art page. And it's one thing that we see with our studio pages or any studio page. Like you might notice if you're a tattoo studio, and even if you're posting great work, that content is going to have lower engagement than if the actual artist posts it, right?
Yeah.
Because the business, even if you show yourself, you show your employees, it's just this thing, right? It's not a person that people are connecting with as much as an artist. So I always recommend show your face, show your people who you are.
Yeah. And like what's gonna happen? What's the worst case scenario? Like really play it through, right? Someone who you don't know talks shit about you. Why do you care?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why are you living your life?
Yes.
Giving a fuck about that. I always feel like people that get covered, whether you're a tattoo artist or just a collector, like you kind of get tattooed in the beginning because you don't give a fuck what people think.
Yeah.
And then we've created this culture in tattooing where people just give so many fucks about what people think.
Yeah.
It's beyond
And
me.
that's for
Yeah, and
everyday
it's
life,
never
honestly.
it's never people that You know, if somebody's going to talk shit or think shit about you, like that's not your target audience anyway. So yeah,
No.
worst case scenario, they don't follow you.
And the truth is, so like I've had these conversations with people like, well, I judge other people for posting their face, right? You might see something, not saying me, but I've totally seen other creators and judged them for whatever reason. Like, oh, fuck this person. Because they're just being real. They're just being authentic. And the thing about authenticity, and people talk about authenticity all the time, the thing about it is polarizing. It should bother some people. If you're trying to please everyone and just do enough I've seen tattooers like, I'm just posting my face just to please the algorithm. Like, okay, but if you actually talk about what you're passionate about, why you got into tattooing, why you give a fuck, who you love working with, talk about that stuff. There are going to be people that don't like it, and there are going to be people that follow you because of it. And that's actually what you want.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and I, you know, the other thing too is like if people don't like it, guess what? If they get tattooed by you, they're going to see your face. They're going to hear you talk about yourself, why you got into tattooing. So again, that's probably not your target
It's
audience.
not your target audience, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So, you know, you mentioned when you started doing, and I love that you got into this stuff like 4 years ago, you know, during COVID.
Yeah, I got into it 4 years ago. I didn't know that I was gonna like kind of stop tattooing professionally. I love tattooing. Like, I think it's the best job in the world, and I miss it. There's some ideas and stuff brewing. Like, I'm gonna tattoo the way I want to, you know, for fun. But I love helping people. I love seeing people win in their life and breaking through old patterns and seeing amazing results. And so I also had this like death of the identity of being a tattooer.
Yeah.
In that time. And the truth is, I was talking to someone the other day about like, no matter what your profession is, like, why should you feel like you have to do this one thing for the rest of your life?
Right.
Or even one art form. Like, my mom is an artist. She was a painter, and then she did pottery for years, and then she did sculpture, and now she does mixed multimedia, like collages. Like, even one art form. You're a painter, you're a tattooer. There are probably times where you want to dabble in other things.
Yeah.
And I feel like tattooers, I've gotten, you know, judgment from tattooers, which again, you're not my client, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I'm not helping you. I'm not, you know, I'm not for you. I'm not your cup of tea. Totally fine. That like judge me for not tattooing anymore. They're like, do you even tattoo? It's like, I can.
Yeah.
Probably tattoo better than a lot of the people that are judging me.
Isn't that funny? People that talk shit about tattoos or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like,
People that
if you look at your work, it's like,
Yeah. and
maybe
it's
you
like,
should try wearing headphones when you tattoo because
Why does your accountant tattoo?
Yeah.
Does your auto mechanic tattoo? Like, why do do you care?
Yeah. Highly suggest if someone's talking shit just to look at their work.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I do. Yeah.
yeah. No, but that's very interesting that you don't really tattoo anymore because I actually didn't know that. And that's one thing that I tell shop owners all the time. It's like you really need help, and we can get into delegation and everything like that too. But like tattooing is a full-time job. So is owning a shop or whatever, running a business or whatever it is. So you really need help to do that. So that's very interesting that you've really dove into this full time.
I've talked to a lot of tattooers that have been honest, and they're like, I think it's so cool that you don't tattoo anymore, that you actually started another business. So like, I've always thought about that.
Yeah.
I've always thought about owning a surf shop or starting my burger joint. And like, they have you're a person, you evolve, you change, your
Yes.
interests change over
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to want to do something else. It's okay.
And,
you know?
and that's a great point because I've always opened up most of my seminars and I talk about delegation a lot. And I say, you need to just tattoo and let people do everything else. But I actually had a guy recently where he's like, well, I kind of want to, I want to do this business thing. And it's not because I don't think that that's a good idea. It's just because, most people that tattoo, I just figure that they only want to tattoo. But it's totally okay if you don't want to, or even if you want to tattoo less and focus on other things. I think part of it too is, it's scary to make that realization. It's hard to change your identity
it
because
was scary.
it's
It
not
was.
just letting everybody else know, like, hey, this is what I do anymore. It's also like, it's an identity thing within yourself where you have to be honest with yourself and say, you know, this isn't what I want anymore. Or my priorities change.
Yeah.
And part of it, I think, is like sunk cost fallacy too, because if you spent whatever 15 years tattooing, it's like, I put so much time into this. This is my identity now. But there's a lot of insecurity that comes with making a transition or just making that realization. But
Yeah.
I think it's like the change thing that we were talking earlier. It's like the sooner that you can recognize that and get on board with it, the easier time you're going to have, the happier you're going to be, and the better off
Also,
you're going to
life
be at
is
the end of
fucking
the day.
short.
Yes.
Like, you are on a rock right now, floating around a fireball in the vast emptiness of space. We don't understand what's going on, the whole thing, and you're here for a blip. Why do you need to? And if you want to spend the whole time, 30 plus years, doing one thing, great. But if you are honest with yourself and you find that you don't want that, that's who I'm speaking to. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
To thine own self be true. Be true to yourself and nobody else. You know, don't die, don't get buried in the grave and like could have pursued their life dreams, could have lived up to their fullest potential, but didn't because they were worried about what other people thought of them.
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
worst fear, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of failure. I've been afraid of failure. I've done a lot of work on that too. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of not trying and regretting not seeing what I'm actually capable of.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it too is just not judging yourself, right? Because whatever, it's an identity crisis or complex. You know, I was talking about the 4 agreements earlier, and
Yeah.
you know, you cast spells with your words.
Yeah.
Well, it also talks, you know, when you say things about yourself or internally, where you say, you know, I'm a failure, or I'm not this, I'm a tattooer. That's very powerful. You know, there's a realization there where you're judging yourself, you know, and that's part of it too, is you need to accept whatever it is that you want to get into or stop doing or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. And also, what if, like, speaking as a financial coach, if somebody was like, hey, you know, I do have this other dream that isn't going to make me as much as a tattooer, but it's going to make me happier. How do you feel about something like that?
Go do what makes you happy. That's it. Do what excites you. I'm a big fan of, you ever seen Bashar on Instagram? Bashar is an alien that is channeled through a man named Daryl Anka. Check it out.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you believe me or not.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
even know if I believe, but some of the most brilliant wisdom that has ever been spoken, in my opinion. And he says, like, the key to life is follow what excites you. That's it. Follow it to the largest degree that you can until you can't follow it anymore. And then at that moment, follow whatever else excites you.
Yes.
And that's all I did. That's what I did. In 2020, something else excited me more than tattooing, and I followed that, and it led me here. And I will do this until something else. You know what really excites me is public speaking and like keynote speaking, and like I want to talk on the intersection between art, spirituality, and business. I see business as a spiritual tool. It is a crucible. It puts me in positions where I have to deal with the internal work. I have to deal with the emotions. I have to deal with the perceptions that I project outward onto the world that aren't the truth. And I use spiritual tools, practices to deal with that. And so business has helped. It's become this great teacher. Like all the difficult things in life, the things you struggle with, they are your greatest teachers. My daughter, her name is Veda, which in Sanskrit means wisdom. And she is my greatest teacher. She's also the fucking hardest thing I ever had to do, is be a father. But when you approach life from the perspective that there are no problems, there's no such thing as problems, there are only opportunities to learn, right? Every breakdown is an opportunity for a breakthrough to happen. When you approach life like that, to me, that is abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Then there are no problems. There's nothing bad in your life. There's just you learning and growing constantly, and that's it.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, so I mentioned it before, but I love how you basically kind of taught yourself all this stuff. So,
Yeah.
What kind of, you know, aside from having to take the time to do that, what kind of growing pains have you had as you've kind of grown this business? And
A lot. And I think that's, you know, on Instagram, you kind of have to like just look like you got all your shit together. But in the past couple years, I've gone through a divorce. I've had to move out. I've had to hire and fire many people. I've had to deal with financial problems and things coming up, and being, you know, you can say whatever, like my income grew, my revenue grew. With that, more money, more problems, you know. Dealing with taxes in a completely different way, having to plan. I have to plan taxes months out in advance now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm meeting with my accountant this month to talk about taxes that I'm not going to fully file until February, March, you know.
Yeah.
And then honestly, adapting to the changes in the tattoo industry has been really hard, because in the beginning of 2024, you know, we went from signing on around 20 people would join our financial coaching program to like 4 to 5 people a month. And we're like, this is not sustainable. We hired this whole team. We've invested all this capital in creating this, and now we're seeing that the problem that we solve, while it's still a problem, this new problem has arisen. And I love that all business is just solving problems. That's it.
Yeah.
You know? So that was a big hurdle for us. And there were moments where I thought we were just going to completely go under.
Yeah.
I mean, I screamed into a pillow, crying, just being like, everything I worked for is about to be done.
Yeah.
And I had to solve that problem.
Yeah,
Wow.
man, isn't that the other part of the risk that you inherit? It's not just risk with yourself. It's and you say, you know, your artists hire you, you're working for them. It's them too, because even though it might be relatively easy for them to pick up and go somewhere else, like now we have 5 people on staff that work for us. And so at the end of the day, when those things happen, like the first thing I think about is not like, will I be okay? It's like, I'm now in charge of all these other people and their well-being, you know.
2 of my employees have kids, and they're full time, and so that's what they do. They work, they help tattooers grow their business and save for the future full time. And if that business, something happens, and you know, we can't pay payroll, like that's a problem. And so I carry that weight, and believe me, it's a lot. I mean, it's crushing sometimes. And again, that's why I go deeper into my spiritual practice.
Yeah.
That's why I meditate every fucking day. That's
Yeah.
why I do the breath work and the journaling and the mantras, because if I didn't, the weight of what I'm taking on would crush me.
Yeah.
That's a good advice to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this sort of reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you. What is the difference between emotional freedom and financial freedom?
Yeah. So I said this once on a podcast or somewhere. I was like, there is no such thing as financial freedom. There is only emotional freedom. And what I mean by that is I have now worked with people earning $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year that were able to, you know, save up their first $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Actually have a net worth. You know, net worth is your assets minus your liabilities.
Yeah.
So they're earning, you know, a moderate income, but they're able to really save and accumulate and pay taxes and cover everything, right? I've also worked with clients that are netting over $1 million a year after expenses. They earn over $1 million, and they are $300,000, $400,000 in debt due to back taxes and other expensive lifestyles. And so while they're earning 100 times more, their net worth is negative.
Yeah.
And so you know, we often try to solve the money problem with making more money. Okay, I don't have enough money, I must make more money. And I think that you can just go down that pathway and never find the solution.
Right. You'll always be chasing.
You'll always be chasing. Why are you chasing? Like there's an emotional thing that keeps you doing the same thing. Your actions around money and anything in life, but particularly around money, are so tied to your emotional state. And so what I mean by that is like there is no amount of money that can give you emotional freedom. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
that's
you can
important.
achieve emotional freedom with any amount of money.
Yes.
And so, you know, but if you want to like talk like, okay, from a purely practical standpoint, like what is financial freedom? I mean, there's levels. There's levels of financial. There's one level where you never need to trade time for money for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And brass tacks, if you put $2 million into an investment account and you pull out about 4% of that earnings per year, then you could live forever, essentially. On $100,000, that'll get you $100,000 a year, 4 to 5%. Usually maybe 3 to 4. But, that's okay, great. What do I do with that information? I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have $2 million, so what am I going to do with that? So, okay, then you're like, all right, well, maybe doing something I love and earning some level of passive income to, pay some of my bills. Between struggling to pay your bills and having $2 million to passively earn you $100,000 a year, like there's all these levels of financial freedom, and ultimately I don't think any of them give you emotional freedom.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
very well said.
it does. Absolutely. Because I think what people are going to gain so much from this podcast is just so much people having so much like anxiety around money. I think these are all really important issues of like things that go on in everyone's head.
When you do the internal work, and I have a good friend of mine, Nadine Zumot, she has another podcast called the Money Healing. Oh no, she just started, I think she renamed it called the Unfuck Your Money Podcast. It's great. She's brilliant. I shout out to her. I love her dearly. She's a trauma-informed money coach, and she does and talks about the nervous system. Like there's that book, The Body Keeps the Score. Like everything puts a mark on your nervous system, which triggers your emotions, which triggers your actions. When you are able to build a level of calm and peace and sit in the fire of money and just sit in it and not get burned and recognize that, like, okay, money is just a creative medium. That's it. It's like ink. It's like a tattoo machine. It's a creative medium. And I can use it to create the life I want. But the only way I'll have the freedom to create that life is if I create the internal emotional freedom that allows me to do that.
Yeah.
Magical, miraculous things start to shift in your financial situation. Debt just starts going away. I'm serious. It sounds magical, but your words are spells. Like debt magically starts to go away. Savings magically starts to grow. A new level of comfort and confidence around talking about money, being with money, planning for the future. All of that stuff becomes possible when you do that inner work. Yeah. And I'll take go to the grave on that one, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the hill I'm willing to die on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's so awesome.
I love that.
We just announced the artists that are presenting at our 2024 Winter Symposium, and I think it's going to be the best one yet. The symposium is basically a 2-day conference with 8 artists presenting in every style you can really think of. The lineup for this winter is going to be insane. We brought artists from all over the country, the world, to come to this one place. Not only that, but those artists are going to be at the venue all weekend long, so you can hang out with them and ask them any other questions you want. We'll also have 2 bonus presentations, not on tattooing, but on things that are essential for your tattooing career. And we have incredible sponsors, including Inkies, Bishop Rotary, and Empire Inks. We give away thousands of dollars worth of free samples and have some amazing items for our raffles. But honestly, the best part of these symposiums is you. This is an amazing opportunity for you to network and meet other people from around the world. You all are from different places, have different types of experiences, and have all different types of styles. But you have one thing in common. You're all here with the same purpose and passion for improving your tattoo career and bettering yourself. Join us in Frisco, Texas on December 14th through 16th for this incredibly special event. It's literally the best investment for any artist who's passionate about their work and growing. Check the link in the video description for more info.
So we kind of, we mentioned the tattoo industry is changing. You've gone through some changes with the courses you offer, but I wonder if we could talk about that a little bit more as far as like where we think the tattoo industry is at right now, what the trajectory is of it, what's happening. So do you want to share any thoughts on?
It's a good topic and on a lot of people's minds. So I'll also, preface it like, I don't know where the fuck it's going. I can make my prediction, but, based on, but it's just my opinion, man, everyone says the tattoo industry is oversaturated. And I just invite people to just take the word over out and just it's saturated, right? Over is an opinion. But let's take I always try to take opinions out of like what's so, and then what's the story about what's so.
Yeah.
And is the story about what's so serving me or not, right? And if it's not serving me, then let's change the narrative, because I can't change what's so, but I can change the story about what's so.
Yeah.
So right now, what's so is the industry is more saturated than it has ever been. And at the current rate of growth, which you look at like the capital average growth rate of the tattoo industry, which averages about 9% or so per year, the average is about 3% in most industries. It's growing about 3 times faster than average industries. So we can use that data to tell us that, you know, in the next 10, 20 years, like there's going to be a lot more. Will it slow? Will the growth slow down? Like, sure, maybe it'll slow down to 7%. It's still growing.
Yeah.
Even if it slows down to the average of 3%, it's still growing it's still a big industry that grows at 3% compounding every year. So we're going to see a lot of changes happen even faster in the next 10 years than we did in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I can pretty much guarantee that, or at least that's my opinion. We are now in and I look at it as like tattooing was in its childhood, and then it was like in its adolescence and teen years, and like now we are fucking adults. It's like, get out of mom's house, go fucking pay your bills.
Yeah.
If you want to make money, you have to go out there, hunt it, kill it, drag it home, and eat it.
Yeah.
And that is what every business has to do.
Yeah.
Every business.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is marketing. A big part of that is managing our finances. A big part of that is hiring, and then the back end, the minutia. That's why I have a COO, because I don't want to deal with all the nuanced paperwork, licensing, blah blah blah. Policies. All of that is now a big part of the industry of tattooing, not the craft. If tattooing is just your craft, just your hobby, it's not how you pay your bills, then you don't even need to worry about anything I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But if it is how you pay your bills, and it is how you plan on paying your bills for the next 10 years, then I would pay close attention. I think that social media is going to continue to dominate for a while the way that all businesses, tattooing including, get their clients, because, and now content isn't necessarily getting you more awareness. It's building trust with the awareness that you've already cultivated. And then there's other forms of marketing. We were talking about paid ads, right? Paid ads can help build awareness, but content is just nurturing those relationships, showing up consistently to build that trust, that relationship, so that people will inevitably end up booking an appointment with you. I think in the next, very soon, 5 years easily, learning how to run paid ads effectively is going to be absolutely necessary for every single shop, because the cost of cost per click of certain keywords on like Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever, or mostly Google ads, cost per click for like tattoo shop is so cheap right now compared to other industries who compete for like $20, $30, $40 per click. I was looking up like San Diego or something, like Tattoo Shop San Diego. It was like $2 per click.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge opportunity. Anywhere there's an opportunity in an industry, what happens? People move in to fill the opportunity, and then the price goes up.
Yeah.
So right now there's a huge opportunity, but you're going to see more and more people doing that. The price is going to skyrocket. And that, again, it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And then around that time, the next 5 to 10 years, you're probably going to see something other than social media start to arise that people are going to bitch and moan about.
Yeah.
Like, I follow like Gary Vee talks, or like other people talk, like some sort of like a virtual metaverse, AI inspired something or whatever. And older people like myself, I'm 38 and I feel, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to be like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Why are people spending their time on this when you could just go outside in the real world? And if I run a business, I'm going to have to learn how to use it. And that's just how it is. And so that's kind of like my loose little, what I think is going to happen over the next 10 years. If tattooing is how you plan on paying the bills for the next 10 years, I would start to read some books on. Now, there's a lot of fundamental stuff, like Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing. Like, there's so many fundamentals on marketing in that book that you could apply to social media or some AI metaverse thing or whatever the fucking next thing is. And so I encourage people to like learn the fundamentals, practice them as best you can, you know, and if you don't want to pay the ignorance tax, hire someone to help you do it.
Yeah.
What are books that you would recommend people? If we can list
So
them out.
I think that everyone, if you own a business, I think you should understand copywriting. Have you dove into like the world of copywriting?
Not really.
Dude, copywriting, you're talking about words or spells, right? It's literally learning how to craft a magic spell that gets people to do what you would like them to do, right? Now, you could, like all magic, you can use for good or bad, right?
Yeah.
People use it for propaganda to create World War II, right? That's a form of copywriting. But businesses who want to authentically, honestly resonate with their ideal client, you need to understand how to use words to do that. And when you position, so like Eugene Schwartz, he wrote this book called Breakthrough Advertising. That's a really great book on copywriting. And it's still to this day, it's written, I don't know, in the 60s?
Yeah.
Maybe? I could be wrong about that. But it was written a while ago. It's still to this day considered one of the best books. And he says the purpose of the first sentence, whether that's on your website or your email or your caption or your business card, whatever the fuck it is, the purpose of the first sentence is to get them to read the second sentence. The purpose of the second sentence is to get them to read the next sentence. And thinking about everything you write, and whether you write it or you speak it, as how is what I'm saying here drawing someone into the next thing, getting them, building curiosity, building tension, building a narrative that follows them to the point where they get to the place, the thing that I want them to see or do, the call to action, the sign up for this thing, or the come to this event, or the book this appointment.
Yeah.
So copywriting is absolutely, I think every business owner should read Breakthrough Advertising. There's also Ogilvy. I can't remember the name of the book, but he's a famous copywriter. There's other copywriting books out there, but those are considered, those two authors, Eugene Schwartz and Ogilvy, are like considered some of the greatest. Seth Godin is fantastic. Those are the ones I would like mostly recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to check those out. I feel like, I mean, just in every industry, there are a lot of things change, but there are a lot of just fundamentals.
Yeah.
As far as like, this is the way this is, that it's just going to serve you with, you can apply it to different things, but it's just going to.
Right. And so like I read Eugene Schwartz's book, but I don't expect every tattoo artist to read Eugene Schwartz's book. It's heavy reading. It's not the most exciting stuff. I get fucking lit up about it.
Yeah.
But then I've now applied everything I've learned into tattooing. I literally give people email templates that I wrote that they send out and book appointments doing.
Yeah.
I was like, I've done the work for you. You just have to copy and paste it.
Yeah.
And so, but if you want to learn it, and I'd say get excited about marketing, get excited about business. The reason you were able to get good at tattooing is because you loved it. You poured love into it. I even say pour love into money. Oh, that's such a controversial topic right there.
Yeah.
But I would say pour your attention, intention, and love into your marketing, into your business, into your relationship with money, and you will be greatly rewarded.
I always say in my seminars, I challenge people to view social media as like something that you get to do. Like it's a privilege to be able to have this platform to show people. And if you can start thinking about it like that, rather than a chore, you're going to enjoy it a lot more.
And
it's probably going to be a lot better. Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. Never before in fucking history has the masses had access to free marketing tools that can get you in front of hundreds, thousands, and potentially millions of eyeballs. Never in the history of marketing, like social media's been around for 13 years? Like marketing's been around, when radio first came out, it was the thing. Everyone's ears were focused on radio, and you had to pay fuck tons of money to even get a 15-second clip on it. Then it was TV, and you had to pay fuck tons of money to get on there. And you even think about like the commercials that people were making. You're like, maybe they were, I'm always going to bring it back to like a dentist or a plumber. Whatever. That's their focus. Their craft was that. They didn't want to make a fucking commercial.
Yeah.
But they if they wanted to get clients to keep doing the thing they did, they had it. And now you can do it for free.
Yeah. Isn't that
pay
crazy?
anyone. It's democratized, and yet we bitch and moan about it.
Right.
You know, I was thinking about this yesterday. It's like we don't really do ads right now, but she has like Meta Verified, which is like $15 a month.
Right.
And you know, like since we've been open, like Instagram has literally made us like millions of dollars. It's
Sure.
led to millions of dollars in sales, and we like really don't even pay for it. It's a
Yeah.
crazy concept.
Yeah,
It's
and you've
wild.
leaned into it. You've learned to do. You know, you paid the ignorance tax.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Totally.
You know, and you got excited about it, and you can tell by looking at your content that you're genuinely excited. I mean, look, we're here recording content.
Yeah.
And so that we were talking earlier about podcasts. I think every tattoo shop should have a podcast, because your short form content is going to get those people that are more likely to become a client to check out your long form content, which
Yeah.
is where they're going to build a deeper connection with you.
Yes.
I was hanging out with one of the guys in my course the other day who's out here in Dallas, and he's such an entertaining motherfucker. I mean, he's just like, he's loud, he's a big personality, he's fun, he's opinionated, and like that makes for a great podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he said, people tell him all the time, you should do a podcast, and he's like, oh, but like, do it, make a bad podcast.
Yeah.
Who cares? Just
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's why that's actually exactly why we've dove into the long form stuff. And tattoo marketing is such a interesting concept, because you know, whenever you book a client, like the return on investment is really high. You know, it's when you get somebody to buy a tattoo versus a shirt or something, you know, you're getting paid a lot more. That being said, it's a way bigger decision to get a permanent tattoo than it is to buy a shirt that you don't have to wear again ever if you don't like it. So, and especially with the industry becoming more saturated, I won't say oversaturated, but like people have options. Like nowadays, if you want a great realism tattoo, there's 10 artists in your city that can slay
There's
a black
probably
or gray
50
realism.
artists in your city. If
At
you live in
least.
a big enough city,
Yeah,
like,
1,000,000%.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and this is why I say like you need to show your personality, is because people like they want to get tattooed by you because of who you are. And they'll probably, even if they like you, they'll probably even get tattooed by you, even if your work is maybe not as good as this other guy who didn't pay them the time of day in a DM. Doesn't like the same stuff they're interested into. And so that's why, and so anyway, so bringing this all back in, why we started doing the long form content more is like, and we talked about this with Enrico Incarnati, who's a Dallas social media guy. He was also on the podcast. But if you can capture somebody's attention for an hour and a half, if I can get somebody to watch this podcast for an hour and a half, they're going to trust us to do their tattoo that much more than if they spend 90 seconds on a reel, 3 seconds reading your caption. Like, all of it's good that you've earned their attention.
Sure.
But the longer that you can earn their attention, the more they're going to trust you.
Now I'm curious, because a lot of your content is very focused towards tattoo artists.
Yes.
Do you find that the podcast is reaching people that are not tattoo artists?
So it's, I think probably the majority of the audience is still tattoo artists.
Right.
One,
so too.
yeah, one thing it works well for us though is like, and you know, another reason we started the podcast is because we can get shorts from it. Obviously, we can get short form content. But when we make something that's relatable,
it goes out there. Yeah.
Tattoo artists will share that shit all day long.
Well, you can have this one for free. Make podcasts that are not just for tattoo artists.
Yeah, totally. And
then
we do.
for anyone, like make content, because I see tattooers falling into that habit on Instagram. Is they make content and it's kind of only funny or entertaining or resonating to other tattoo artists, and then you'll see this post blow up, right?
Yeah.
And it has a million comments, and they're all tattoo artists, and then the algorithm, you actually start training your algorithm to like push to more people like that. So it is this kind of like fine line of like, how do we do that?
Totally. And it is a tough line, especially like when we're tattoo, like that's what we know, right? Like I think about tattoos all day long. So like most of the stuff that I think about or talk about, other tattoo artists are going to relate to it and appreciate it. But we talked about it, I think on the last podcast, but we make a lot of educational content. You make a lot of educational content, and your market is tattoo artists mostly. But it's interesting for other tattoo artists because most of the time your market is not tattoo artists.
Right.
But when we talk about building trust, if clients see that you're teaching other tattoo artists,
absolutely,
they're going to trust the shit out of you, because
totally
if they're thinking about who am I going to get tattooed by, yeah, I want to get tattooed by the artist that's teaching other tattoo artists. So we do get a lot of comments from tattoo artists like, thank you for this was super helpful. But we also get comments from people all the time that's like, I'm not a tattoo artist, but this is super interesting.
Right. You've positioned yourself as an authority in your field, that is something that content should do for everyone. Position yourself as an authority in your field.
And so this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, but this is kind of why it's not when you go viral, if it's because of like a trend or a comedic video or whatever, like it's not really a bad thing, but it also like there's a lot of value that you can extract from that. And if you're making content that's not going to lead to sales, like especially if you're doing a dance or something like that, we don't do anything like that. Yeah. But or if you're just being funny, like it's not really establishing you as an expert in your field, and also it's not really providing much value to people. So I see people they'll post a funny meme, whatever, a tattoo meme, and they'll get millions of views on it, but their followers stay the same, because when you're scrolling your Instagram and you see something funny, you probably interact with it, you probably send it to your friends, but unless you've seen the page come up a bunch of times, you're probably not going to follow that page, because there's a million other pieces of content like that. And so that's one thing that I kind of, I've mentioned to other tattoo artists, I'm like, you can use humor to go viral, and we do it a little bit, right? We do some skits and everything like that, but I think there's a difference between just posting something that may or may not go viral. Like, you still have to tie it back to you. And so that's one thing, like, I think John Nelson does a good job with that, is because, like, obviously he posts funny stuff, but he's made this whole brand identity for himself, right? Yeah. Where you see his stuff multiple times, it's unmissable. And if you see him multiple times and you like it, you're probably going to follow him and check out his other stuff because you like that personality that he's curated.
I always like referencing John Nelson's content, because people think, oh, you have to be hey guys, here's 3 tips on how to do, and he's not, he's just being his authentic self, but it's a little tongue in cheek, and it's like this perfect, like, he's just doing what he fucking wants to do. And that's what I tell everyone, is like, at the end of the day, when you start to make content, you sort of can't help but sort of make it the way you've seen a lot of other people. Yeah. And again, that thing, make bad content to make good content. But after a while, you start to fall in. I promise you, John didn't start out making content the way he makes content right now. Yeah. It has evolved over time, but he had to go through that first phase to get to where he is now.
So, and he talked about it on the Lost podcast episode that he did, but he also talked about it in his symposium seminar too. But we've talked to him about how he got into this. Yeah. And when he got into it, same thing. He was super nervous. He didn't know how to do it, but he was just making stuff that kind of reflected his personality. Now, he's not an asshole. He's actually a super nice guy. Yeah. But his idea of a fun time is joking around with his friends, giving people shit. And so that's kind of what he molded into his content. And he told everybody in the symposium, like, the reason that he's been able to get into it so much and that he likes doing it now is because he's just played off of what he likes, And I think that's so important, because with whatever you do, if you're not finding that enjoyment in it, you're not going to keep doing it forever. Like, there's no way. Yeah. So, yeah. I'll send that episode to you, or we'll drop it on Spotify or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. And then there's this whole belief of, like, I do good tattoos. Like, I don't want to get known. I just want to do the good tattoos. Or, like, I love when people say, like, your tattoos should speak for themselves. It's like, no. I do good tattoos, so my tattoos should speak for themselves. Should be, I do good tattoos, so I should speak for my tattoos.
Now, I was going to even state my thought on that too, because everyone has different goals, right? If you just want to get by, do what you like to tattoo, and maybe, like, not make as much money, like, that's fine. But if you're wanting to do great with your business and social media, if you don't want to do the social media, you got to be in the top 1% of tattoo artists to get known. And if that's not what you're trying to do, then you better work your fucking ass off to get in the top 1%.
Well, and so that, and not to, I feel like it's like you could take a shot every time I say this in my seminars, but it's just stuff that I've said before. But I mean, just the reality of Instagram nowadays and how many tattooers there are, there's we've lost kind of this novelty of like when you see a tattoo, it's like 15 years ago, you see a color realism portrait. And that was blowing people's minds because there's like, I've never fucking seen that before. But like realistically, like how often do you scroll Instagram now and you see a tattoo that hasn't been done before or hasn't been done very similarly before?
Right.
So to set yourself apart from all those other tattooers, like it is so tough. Like, and it's Justin said it on our podcast too. He's like, what else is out there? You know, we'll keep finding stuff obviously, but like the list it's getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah. And
you know?
when I say top 1%, I don't mean the people that were top 1% 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. I'm talking about like you have to be constantly evolving your work to be able to get into that 1% now.
Yeah. And I think there's
to
a bit,
get noticed, I think.
Yeah.
Without talking.
Yeah. And as the industry changes, you know, like, and the importance of things like social media changes. It's like you see people that, you know, they are probably not as good of artists as some other people out there, but their social media is doing way better because they've learned how to play that game, or people like their personality, you know. So it's just this ever evolving thing, and yeah, it's not enough to do good work anymore. It's just not. That's just the reality.
And it doesn't,
that's where we're at.
It doesn't have to be a bummer. Like
Yeah.
I was never interested in business, but when I started to look at it from this lens of like, okay, how can my business actually help me make better tattoos? How can getting on top of my taxes actually reduce my stress so that I can pour more of my energy into my artwork? Like I only got interested in finance and business in the beginning purely from how can I actually make this a part of tattooing rather than a stupid thing I have to deal with in order to do tattoos. Then somehow I don't know if I got struck by a micrometeor in the back of my head or what, and I got obsessed with the game of business. It is a game. It's fun, and I hope to infect other people. If you get even 10% of the joy and the passion that I have for business, if you get infected with that, like, it's going to serve you for the rest of your life.
And it all ties back into each other because you could look at it as a negative thing, but one downfall of tattooing is like at the end of the day, it's the epitome of trading your time for money, right?
Yeah.
And you can definitely 100% get it to a point where you're comfortable with money, whatever that means to you. But there's always further to go with your marketing, your business, and it always ties back into your tattoos because you can either get paid more for the time that you do have to spend, which not that should be everybody's end goal, but it doesn't hurt, right?
Right.
Or you can make that time more enjoyable by focusing on the tattoos that you really want to do with the clientele that you want to work with. And it's a little bit counterintuitive because the more you charge for your tattoos, the more you're going to enjoy those clients and the better clients you're going to get. So it's something else that I say all the time.
It's very true.
Yeah. Well, man, we're doing good on time and everything. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? I feel like we covered a lot.
We covered a lot. Yeah, I think if there's like anything else that I like to cover, want to leave people with, is just thinking of your relationship with, there's one with money, right? But like your relationship with your future self, and thinking about your career as a tattooer. Like if you're 35 and you've been tattooing for 10 years, and in another 10 years of tattooing you'll be 45 years old, and another 10 you'll be 55. You know, you're still 10 years away from like a traditional retirement. Are you going to want to tattoo? Realistically, if you think the chances of, there's a high probability that you will at some point be 65, 75, 85 years old. And I think when you take the time to just sit with that reality, it really shifts your perspective. It gets you to take different actions in the present. I talk about it in my course, I call it the inner elder. So you have a relationship with your inner child, which you should 100% do that inner child work. Oh my God, it is some of the most powerful stuff that you can do to free yourself in your life. If you want freedom, do inner child work. If you want to create freedom for the future, do inner elder work and look at, like, think about that version. Okay, that 65-year-old version of Ryan, like, what does he want to do with his life? How does he want to spend his time? How does he feel after a lifetime of tattooing and working and hustling, and start to recognize you have a responsibility right now to take care of that version of yourself. And so what actions can you take today that inner elder version of you would be proud of, would be thankful, grateful for, that this version of Ryan is doing this today to take care of that future version of Ryan. And I think a lot of, and this is not just tattooers, I think a lot of people, they get so stuck in the short term, like, oh, I just got to make enough to pay my bills, and then I just got to make enough to pay my bills, and then I just got to and every month, I compare it to like pulling a line. So like when you start tattooing, you're really focused on how deep your needle is and what angle it's at, right? Eventually, you're not thinking about that at all. You're thinking about where you want the line to go. And so when you're focused on the short term, your line is wobbly. You're like, how deep is it? What angle is it at?
Yeah.
But once you kind of actually stretch out your perspective and you're looking at where you want your line to go, your hand naturally glides there. I'm not really looking at the needle. I'm looking at where I want the needle to be.
Oh, love that.
And so look at your life that way. If you're constantly looking at where you are right now in your financial situation and how do I get to the end of the month, right? That's very short term. Start expanding your perspective of time to years and decades. Where do I want to be 10 years from now? It makes it a lot easier to deal with the short-term financial strains, burdens, actions that you need to take, but it will start to guide you in that direction.
Yeah. Man, 1,000,000%. So
love
much
that.
wisdom.
I love that.
And I think too that ties back into what we were talking. I can't remember if we had started rolling it, but we were talking about, taking seminars and how it's time collapsing, or not even tattoo seminars, but business, financial, marketing seminars, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day. It's can expedite your growth because you're skipping a lot of those steps, but the other part of that exponential growth is you at the end of that. You in 10 years, 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
You're going to be so grateful if you look back and say, I'm so glad I took that course. I'm so glad I made this decision to change this trajectory because look at where I am now.
And like, what are you really, if you don't invest in your own education, like, what are you really saying? You're saying that I can do it all on my own, or I know everything I need to know, or I can learn it all on my own. And like, I would urge people to humble yourself and I always try to take a beginner's mind into anything. Even if I think I already know what I'm about to, I want to pretend like I don't know shit. And that's how I'm going to learn the most. And the truth is, any success that I've created didn't come from me, myself, and I figuring out. It came from other people. It came from learning from other people, getting help, support, and learning those lessons, investing in myself. I'm always in like 2 or 3 courses at any given time. I'm in an ads course right now, learning how to run paid ads. I'm in a social media program. I have a social media coach. So I'm a social media coach, and I have a social media coach.
Yeah.
Like a therapist has a therapist, And I'm also in a public speaking training program. I'm always learning. And before that, over the past couple of years, I've taken so many marketing education programs, financial education programs to invest in myself. And the return on that has been immense. And it's like, okay, what's the other option? I could invest in the stock market, which I think you should to a certain degree and understand how that works. But if you talk about return on investment, people always ask me too, like, my last name is ROI. That's my actual last name. I was born that way. When I worked at the wealth management firm, they were like, so is this, but legally though, because we need to put your legal name on our documents, you're a registered investment advisor, like, it's return on, yeah, Roy. Just happened to be that way.
Yeah.
Your average return in the stock market is about 10% annually, give or take. Some years less, some years more. But over decades, it tends to be a 10% return. So on $100, maybe you make $10 that year, right? Now let's take it to $1,000. On $1,000, you make $100 in that year. If you took that $1,000 and you invested it in an education for your business, do you expect to be able, and it could be learning to draw or a tattoo or a business course or any of these things, do you expect to make more than $100 in the next 365 days on that $1,000 investment? If you do, then investing in yourself is the better investment. You've learned how to make more money, and then you can slowly, passively invest money into the market and have your money make you money babies, which we all love that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a business owner, most of your investing should be done in you.
Yeah.
Not to mention you can write it off in your taxes,
Yeah.
which is tax deductions. Get them when you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that is such a good way to think about it. That's really puts it in concrete terms. Like, how much money is this going to make me in the next year?
I'm always like, brass tacks. What are we really talking about here? You know?
So good. I think that's a good note to end it on. We kind of started out with talking about that. Maybe not on the air. It might have been before the podcast, but
I think we started talking. But I'm a big proponent of investing in, like I said, the S&P 500 instead of the S&P 500, or invest in both. But I always want to put my money into what is going to give me the highest return and benefit my life both now and in the future.
Yeah, I love that, and I feel like it's not just an investment; it's like a bet. And who else? Like who better to bet on than yourself? Because that's you, man. You're in charge of knowing if that bet's going to be a good one or not. You know, or creating that bet to be a good one. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. All right, man. Well, dude, this was awesome. Incredible. And I feel like we could go even longer, but this is...
Well, if you want more support around finance, business marketing, just check out Ryan Roy Tattoo, ROI, Ryan Roy Tattoo on Instagram, the Artful Dollar podcast. We have a YouTube channel. I'm trying to actually make more YouTube content that's not just a podcast.
Yeah. So
I'm going to put out more just educational videos on taxes. That's my next one. I want to do one on taxes because tax season's coming up.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, check it out on all platforms.
And if nothing else, just follow him because he posts free stuff all the time. And that's one thing I also wanted to talk about is providing value, because that's what people are going to follow you for. But if you talk about providing value, like Ryan does that to a T. So that's all free. Follow him on those platforms. And if you want to sign up for his coaching, you can
hit me up. Shoot me a DM.
Yeah.
I'm there. It really is me. I promise. Sometimes I have support, but like I want to have those conversations with people. So
yeah, that's awesome. And we'll tag all your links and the description, everything like that. So yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time.
A couple of years ago, a doctor told me that if I didn't figure out how to stand up while tattooing, I was going to need surgery. That's why we adapted this uplift desk. I stand and tattoo, which now my pain has gone down significantly. I get so many questions on what my tattoo bed is, but really it's not even actually a bed. I think as tattooers, we don't really think of the longevity of our careers or taking care of our bodies. You're tattooing for 8 hours or longer sometimes, so it's just really important to invest in tools that'll extend your career. If you'd like to see the equipment you use to make this,
check out the link in the description.